series. My name is Violet Lavatine, and I'm the executive director of the Tenant Union. So let's get to know each other by dropping your name, pronouns, and the location you're at in the chat.
So dice, bienvenidos a todos y discúlpenos por mucho porque tuvimos dificultades técnicas. Dice, pero ahorita estamos presentándonos nuestro segundo taller desde de cómo organizarnos como inquilinos. Y si por favor pueden poner aquí en el chat cuál es su nombre, su pronombre y en qué parte del estado se encuentra. Ella es la que va a estarle presentando ahorita al principio.
All right, we're going to first start with some logistics. I'd like to introduce our staff member, Jenny, and our Spanish interpreter, Liana, to explain a few steps that all of us need to take to set up interpretation if we're connecting to the audio.
So dice, ahorita en estos momentos vamos a estar pasando unas logísticas y luego ahorita nos vamos a presentar a Jenny y a Liana, que yo soy la intérprete, y nos van a estar diciendo cómo conectarse al canal de el español para podernos conectar ahí para yo poderles interpretar.
Awesome. Thank you, Violet. Thank you, Liana. My name is Jenny. I'm helping with tech support tonight. Just going to go over the logistics for using the interpretation feature. There are 2 audio channels, Spanish and English. Everyone here will need to choose one, regardless of your language preference. I'm going to first explain the steps for turning on your interpretation, and then we're going to take a moment for everyone to follow those steps. Please don't try to do those steps while I'm talking because you won't be able to yet, and it might be confusing.
So, gracias a todos. Dice, rápidamente, las logísticas para la interpretación. Dice, yo les voy a decir a cada uno cómo hacerle para que ustedes escojan su canal, ya sea en inglés o en español, pero tienen que escoger un canal. Pero por favor, ahorita no hagan nada mientras que yo esté hablando, porque primero les vamos a dar las instrucciones para que así después ustedes lo puedan hacer.
Next slide, please. So if you are joining tonight on a computer, you're going to look for a globe icon on the bottom of your screen. So if you're seeing our screen right now, you'll see what that globe looks like in step 1. So you'll click that globe, then you will click the language that you would like to hear and speak in, either English or Spanish. And then if you want to mute, if you want to hear the interpreted language only and not the other language, you'll click mute original audio. Next slide, please.
Entonces, si se encuentran en un Windows o Mac, una vez que ustedes encuentren la interpretación, ustedes van a hacer clic en el globo. Cuando hagan clic en el idioma que quisieran escuchar, ya sea en inglés o en español, y luego después, para no escuchar el audio original, nomás le hacen clic en mute, en el original audio, que así va a decir. Ahí nomás le ponen mute para que no me puedan escuchar a mí como la intérprete.
Thank you. Next slide, please. If you are joining on a tablet or a phone, on the bottom of your screen, you'll see the 3 dots. You'll tap language interpretation and then select from the menu there, English or Spanish. And here you can also mute the original audio if you'd like.
Entonces, ustedes están conectando por un teléfono. Ustedes entonces van a encontrar unos controles donde tienen 3 puntitos y ahí va a decir más, more. Y esto es, ustedes elijan Language Interpretation, donde le van a decir el audio original en inglés o español. Indique el idioma y luego después, para no escuchar el audio original, háganle clic en donde dice Mute Original Audio. Ahí donde dice Mute, ahí le van a hacer clic y ya nomás le van a poner Done, que viene siendo que ya acabaron.
So I put instructions in the chat, and I'm also going to put a link to instructions for this. After Liana is done interpreting this next part, I'm going to start the interpretation, and then everyone will follow the steps to select your channel.
So ahí le puse pausa aquí en el audio, en el canal de audio, y luego después para que ustedes puedan escoger su canal. Ya cuando Liana esté acabando de interpretar, yo le voy a escoger, le voy a dar para que escojan un canal y así puedan hacerlo para que así se vayan a su audio.
Okay, now we can select our audio.
Ahora ya vamos a...
And we'll just take a moment here to give everyone some time to make the right selection. Okay, great. If you are wanting to hear English and not hearing it right now, or wanting to hear Spanish and don't hear it, or if you run into any other issues, let us know in the chat. But at this point, everyone should be in their channel. If you are in the Spanish channel, you can still speak you can still speak, and everyone will be able to hear you if you unmute yourself, and Liana will interpret for you if you do want to speak to everyone in the workshop. So now I'm going to also talk about the live transcription that I'm going to start right now. If you could go to the next slide, please. So I just enabled live transcription. Unfortunately, it's only available in English. There are instructions on the screen for accessing the live transcription. If you're on a computer, you will click on live transcript at the bottom of your screen, select show subtitle, and you can hide the subtitles by following the same steps and clicking hide subtitle. You can also click the view full transcript option to view the transcript in the side panel of your meeting. And if you're joining on a phone or tablet, you'll click those three dots at the bottom of your screen again, tap meeting settings, and from there you will turn closed captioning on or off depending on your preference. And you can also click the three dots to view the full transcript on your phone as well. And just a reminder to, oh, Helena, if you could go to the next slide. Thank you. Please use the mute button to mute yourself when you're not speaking. If you have questions or are participating in the discussion, you can hit the mute button again to unmute yourself so everyone can hear you. I will also put in the chat a link to some general instructions for navigating Zoom. And now I will pass it over to Jaleesa to ground us in our vision for language justice.
Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, Liana. We understand that while we are providing interpretation between only 2 languages tonight, we must recognize that there are many more languages present that are not being interpreted. Why do we try to create a multilingual space in our movement, and why is it important to center language justice? Because we know that the revolution is not happening only in English. Language justice includes the right for everyone to communicate in the languages in which they feel most comfortable, to understand and to be understood, and a commitment to creating a bilingual or multilingual spaces where no language will dominate over the other. It also includes a respect for language rights of all people. Language justice means recognizing the fact that native languages have been almost eradicated as a part of a systemic efforts of colonization and imperialism. In the Americas, Native American people and African peoples understand well how language means persistence. We all dream in different languages. Our hopes are designed in different languages. We create political projects in different languages. And so creating a multilingual space is not a job solely of the interpreters. It requires every one of us to contemplate what language justice means in our lives and our movements, and to actually make it happen. Now I'm going to pass it over to Amber to give us a land acknowledgement. Thank you.
Okay, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you, Jaleesa. All right, so I'm Amber, and I'm gonna do our land acknowledgement. And I want to acknowledge that we are on the occupied lands of the first peoples of what we call Washington State. Spokane, we have the Spokane, Colville Confederate Tribes, Palouse, Coeur d'Alene, Kalispell, Kootenai, Olympia area, Nisqually, Coast Salish, Cowlitz, Seattle, Duwamish, Muckleshoot, Tacoma, Puyallup, Yakima, Central Washington, Yakima Nation, Cayuse, Walla Walla, and Wanapum. I also want to honor and acknowledge Indigenous peoples who live in all the regions that we call North America, Central America, South America, and the Pacific Islands, and Indigenous peoples around the world. We honor with gratitude the land itself and all of the Indigenous people who were first on this land and who are still here today. As we fight for housing justice on occupied lands, we must also fight for decolonization and mutual solidarity with Indigenous peoples. Our collective liberation cannot happen without the sovereignty and resistance of our Indigenous relatives. Thank you. I'm going to pass it on over to Violet to go over our group agreements.
Thank you so much, Amber. So we want to just have group agreements. Elena, will you put on the slide? And so group agreements are something that we respect others' experiences, assume good intentions, be mindful of the time and space you take up. We have a lot to cover. Take risk and participate as you feel comfortable. Take care of yourself, your body during the workshop. Please mute your mic if you're not speaking. And so if there's anything you want to add to our agreements, please put it in the chat if there's anything missing. All right, well, it looks like we've already done our agreements. Now I'm going to pass it over to our Spokane director, Terry Anderson, to give us an overview of our today's workshop.
Hi, everyone. I am going to try to skip out a section so we can move ahead because we were delayed due to our technical issues. So last week, we talked about organizing a tenants association in your building to collectively address concerns with your landlord about rent, housing conditions, and treating tenants with respect. Today, we are going outside of your building to organize for policies and ordinances for your city, and then take those skills to the state legislature to urge lawmakers to enact state laws. If you live in a HUD building or receive a HUD subsidy, you can also use these skills to lobby for federal housing policies with your congressional representatives in the US Senate and US House of Representatives. When you decide you want to work to change rental housing policies, the first thing you should do is contact the tenants union offices. We have offices in Seattle, Spokane, and Olympia. You will learn about any existing campaigns that we have, and you will be invited to join them. Currently, tenants in Spokane and Tacoma are actively engaged with lawmakers to enact tenant protections. A local tenant group in Bellingham has been organizing for policies, and we can connect you to that group if you live there. If you live anywhere else in the state, an organizer will connect you to state legislative organizing or help you start your own group in your own town. Or you can just directly contact Ty Brown, who is our statewide tenant organizer.
Hey, Terry, quick question. Could you just slow it down a little bit? I know where Terry has so much knowledge he wants to get across, but I know our interpreter is speedy over there. That's all I wanted to say.
I will.
Thank you so much, Terry.
Thank you. Wherever you are located, you should always uplift impacted tenants from underrepresented communities into leadership and center your campaign around those voices in order to build power for all and to develop a winning strategy. The primary reason to do this is because even though all renters are impacted by the current housing crisis, Black, Indigenous, and people of color are disproportionately impacted because of the racial gap in home ownership. The same is true for tenants with disabilities, language barriers, tenants who are undocumented, LGBTQ+, single parent households with minor children, and anyone living on a fixed income. They are all more likely to be lifelong renters and never become a homeowner. Tenants do not have the same housing security that goes with home ownership. I don't think I have to tell anybody here that. Tenants, homeowners don't have landlords. Homeowners don't receive an increase in their mortgage payment the way tenants experience rent increases. Home ownership builds wealth, while renting creates debt and causes financial insecurity. Evictions are not just a symptom of poverty, they actually cause poverty. Racial disparity in housing means that Black and brown households are more likely to be evicted and experience gentrification, which is just a nicer word for displacement that divides and separates intact communities. The Fair Housing Act of 1968 was enacted to end housing discrimination. It also requires cities to affirmatively advance fair housing. Cities are required to conduct an analysis of impediments to fair housing and fix those impediments, or they can lose federal funding. Tenant protections affirmatively advance fair housing, and you can tell your city leaders that. You will also set a good example in your community to be inclusive and that you value diversity. The most crucial and ongoing element for organizing for policies is relationship building. You will build relationships with your lawmakers, but the most important relationship to build is with each other. You need to identify each other's strengths so everyone can best contribute and now know how you can support each other. You must build trust and solidarity because you may be doing this for a long time. Organizing for change requires persistence, consistency, and solidarity. You should also build relationships with other groups and organizations that tenants belong to, such as churches, schools, community organizations, and labor unions, and also community organizations that serve the needs of tenant-rich communities. And those were the ones I mentioned before with the gap in home ownership. So I was going to do a brief overview of the agenda, but we will just put the agenda on the screen so you can see what we'll be talking about today in the interest of time. But I do, so you can see that we are going to be going through introductions, and after I'm finished, you will be learning some strategies. So the TU has a rich history of organizing. So as we told you last week, the Tenants Union of Washington State was formed in Seattle in 1977. By 1981, the tenants had organized to enact the first just cause ordinance in Washington when Seattle passed their just cause ordinance in 1981. And the most recent organizing came, and you should all know this, throughout the COVID pandemic, urging Governor Inslee to strengthen and extend the moratorium. And believe me, he was being inundated by landlords to end it every single day that it was in existence. Tenants, you should be very proud of yourself. We had a very strong moratorium. So in between those times, TU tenants kept busy. They were crucial to the state landlord accountability campaign, and it resulted in the passage of a law that requires landlords to pay rental relocation to tenants who are displaced because of condemned property, because of substandard housing. The law also established a prepaid rental relocation program for cities to adopt, so tenants do not have to wait to sue their landlords in order to get paid. The TU organized in Seattle for many years for the RIO, the Rental Registry and Inspection Program, Fair Chance Housing, and most recently organized for ordinances that extended the notice period for rent increases and closed the fixed term lease loophole in the just cause state law. Tacoma tenants organized when all the tenants at the Tiki apartments were served with 20-day notices, and the city then extended the no-cause notice period and adopted other protections. Burien tenants, led by fierce organizer Julissa Sanchez of the Tenants Union, successfully organized for tenant protections that led to a crucial new state law. Julissa will tell us more about the Burien campaign later in the case study. Spokane tenants came together around 2016 to call for just cause eviction ordinance, and the city council created a series of work groups with landlords and tenants and have added other tenant protections. They were going to be voted on March 9th, 2020, which was the day the state was shut down due to COVID-19, and they have been kind of in a holding pattern ever since, and we are now reconvening those work groups. Tenants in Bellingham and Vancouver also extended notice periods for termination notice. And I think this is the thing that I'm the most proud of. Tenants Union was instrumental in organizing tenants to make Washington the first state in the nation to provide right to counsel to income eligible tenants for eviction reform, a permanent rental assistance fund, and all these protections that are keeping people housed right now after this pandemic. So now I'm going to pass it over to Amber and Lydia, who will talk about developing your campaign.
Thanks, Terry, for reviewing the agenda and our history at the TU. We are going to pass it over to Amber and Lydia, creating your campaign strategy. Lydia and Amber.
Thanks, Violet, and Terry, and our amazing tech folks. So I know we've been talking for a while, and we're gonna keep talking, giving you some information real quick that hopefully you all are listening to and trying to absorb, because you're gonna be using the tools we talk about shortly after we go over them to build out a general campaign of your own based on a scenario we give you. So keep your ears open as we go through this part. Let's see here. I think next slide, if at all possible. So let's see here. On the screen, you'll see a flow chart for our general guide for how to build your own campaign strategy. Some of these pieces might be fairly self-explanatory. Some of them we're gonna try to flesh out with you right now. So you might start your campaign by identifying some problems. Can folks drop some examples that might kickstart a campaign or a community organizing effort in the chat? Or say it out loud if you prefer to speak in a large group.
Rent increases.
Great one, Amber. That was an audience plant by the TU. Anyone else have any huge rent increases? Yep.
Yeah, I just heard from my partner that her rent is going up 110%.
Yeah.
So
We're hearing that is
Spokane, by the way.
that is Spokane, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Terry will have some things to say on that later as well. Maintenance issues, deposit ripoffs. Yep, being ripped off by as you move out. Classic. Those are all great examples of what might kind of kickstart landlords. Sure, that could be a great one too. Those are all great examples of like some problems that might come up that make you want to move towards talking to your neighbors, figuring out who your base is around these issues, right? Your base is actually folks who are impacted by the issue, and the folks who should be leading the vision and the goals for how to actually make this issue, to resolve this issue, right? Speaking of, your base is going to be building out your vision and your goals. Your vision, we like to think of your vision as your like overarching dream, why you're doing what you want to see happen ultimately. It can be a bigger umbrella. Your goals should be very specific goals. Give yourself some specific things that you want to see happen. What needs to be changed? What is the solution to resolving your specific issue that you're bringing up? On that note, I'm going to pass it to Amber to dig a little deeper into all those arrows coming off of our vision and goals.
Okay, everyone. So we're going to be looking. Oh, can we go back to the slide of the campaign chart strategy? Okay, so the green, we're looking at the sage green area. And so does anybody out there, I can't see the chat, but does anybody out there know what power mapping is? If somebody wants to shout it out.
I do not.
Okay, power mapping. So power mapping is a tool, and we use this tool to identify who has power in the community and what their how their spheres of influence are. Goodness, getting a bunch of texts. Usually we'll visually map out who and what influences your key decision makers, and which will give you an idea of their values and who they are accountable to, as well as who you might need to have on your side or to neutralize, sway, in order to move the decision maker to take action in favor of your campaign or goal. And so, as I mentioned, your targets and your decision makers are specific people who they need to be swayed. They need to be moved to action. We need to get them towards our goals. We need to, get them to be our partners, our allies. And our partners, there are folks in the work, the folks that we work with, might be co-leads, neighbors, friends, family, other tenants associations, and our allies. Those are the folks who can take action with us. Some of the examples are other housing organizations, churches. Anybody else have any ideas of who some of our allies would be?
Unions.
Yes. Local schools. Residential buildings. Like I said, family, friends, your neighbors, those most impacted.
Politicians.
Yes, thank you. So who might our opponents be?
The Landlord Association.
Yeah, I was gonna say landlords or business owners, maybe.
Okay, yeah. So who might get in your way? Who might you need to neutralize or know about to build your campaign? Who's not willing to budge and why? These could be city council members. We have a lot of good ideas of who these folks might be. And so when we power map, we will be trying to map out, who those are that have power in the community, who we do need to be on side, who do need allies. We need as allies. And so some of the ways that we can get them is to be with us is strategic storytelling. Why might storytelling be an important piece of the campaign? You guys can respond in the chat or say it out loud. Storytelling, those are our lived experiences. They can be used to shape the narrative of the campaign with allies, targets, and even opponents. Knowing what stories will resonate with your base versus your target is a powerful way to ensure your message is being heard. And they uplift the impacted tenants. That's what we're always working towards. Make all voices heard and outreach to tenants enrich the communities and organizations. It's very important that we prioritize racial equity in your narrative by utilizing data and personal stories. Those are the most important. Getting those stories out from the most impacted, they do make a very huge difference, especially when they're coming from your own mouth, from your sharing it from your perspective of your lived experience. And so some of the tactics, developing the ways you plan to reach your goal and sway your target and or decision maker. Does anybody know some tactics we might use that could include organizing in your community, going through the legal system to prove a point? Any other ideas of how a tactic we'd use? How about protesting, actions, contacting your local newspaper, the news, the media, sending out a sign-on letter of support. Those are some of the tactics we might want to use. If you have any other ideas or anything, go ahead and put them in the chat because we will be recording these answers and sharing out. So next we're gonna have Lydia. Lydia, come on. She's gonna share what a timeline is. What's your timeline?
I just wanted to highlight that Yes, I'm seeing in the chat something really important, that these ideas will be coordinated efforts. Tactics are intentionally the base and the community working together based on what's going to help you get what you need from the target or from the community or from your allies or from the public, if that's who you need on your side. I just wanted to highlight, I think Julissa brought it up a while back at different points, but sometimes your goal will take a different amount of time depending on what it is. It can take a long time. Sometimes these campaign strategies are built for a year or 2 years. And that's great. It means you're building out a strategy and a plan to sustain the organizing efforts that you're growing. So just a quick plug for sometimes things take time. That doesn't mean we should wait. It does mean that we can persist and we can sustain each other in the process of getting our goals and our vision met. On that note, I will pass it to Julissa, who's going to go through the kind of how to make your own campaign strategy, as well as the scenario in which we're gonna do it. Thanks, Julissa.
Thank you. Thank you all. Okay, well, we're going to go into the fun part of the workshop. We are going to be building our own campaign strategy. Well, y'all are going to be building your campaign strategy. So we will be putting you all into groups to create your own campaign strategy using what you just learned or what we just talked about in regards to this power mapping. And so we are going to be breaking you in, not breaking you, excuse me. We're going to be putting you out into breakout rooms where you will be imagining along with the other people in your breakout room, a campaign strategy. May I get the next slide, please? Thank you. So you and your neighbors have received a 20-day notice terminating your tenancy. This means that in 20 days from when you received your letter, you need to move out. Now, can you imagine receiving a 20-day notice to move out and you have to come up with $3,000, $6,000 to pay for all of the moving expenses and last deposit in 20 days? Dios mío. So next slide, please. All right, so each breakout room is a building that has received a 20-day notice to terminate your tenancy. You and your neighbors have organized a tenant association within your building to fight back. You are to create a strategy to connect your building organizing to citywide community organizing to push your city council to pass a just cause eviction protection ordinance in your city. You can use the flow chart to create your strategy. And just for reference, just cause is a law that requires a landlord to give a just cause as to why they're terminating the lease, not just because they chose to or woke up one day and decided they didn't like this tenant or in retaliation because the tenant is fighting for their rights. Let's see. Let's give a moment for the Spanish slide, please. But before we jump into the breakout rooms, let's go over the first few pieces together, just to practice. Just waiting for text to open the Google Doc, please. Thank you. Okay, so based on the scenario that I just gave you, what is the problem that we are identifying?
Are you asking that to everybody right now?
Yes, sorry. Yeah,
Oh, I guess the problem is 20-day notice to move out.
perfect. Yes, thank you. And based on the scenario again, you all received a 20-day notice to move out, which we identified that's a problem. So who might fit into our base? And that's a question that I'm asking you all. If you guys can unmute yourself or write it in the chat.
I mean, I suppose other tenants, neighbors,
Absolutely.
potentially people that might be affected by rent increases or something else that could be happening in the property if there's a notice to move out.
Yeah, you're on fire, Curtis.
Thanks.
Listo. Okay, I'm gonna pass it over to Violet to give us the instructions for the breakout rooms. Thank you.
Thank you, Julissa. So instructions for the breakout rooms is when you get into your groups, we ask that you introduce yourselves and use the flow chart to create your campaign strategy. We've also put together some questions for you that go with the flow chart that you can use to discuss and build your strategy. Be creative. You can make up names, entities. We just want you to just practice building out your campaign strategically. We will put the questions in the chat along with the link to handout with the flow chart and the questions. In just a moment, you'll receive an invitation to join the breakout room. Please go ahead and accept the invitation. If you don't accept the breakout room invitation, you'll remain in the main room, which will be for Spanish speakers. We'll now put you in small groups for 12 minutes, and then you'll rejoin the main room again, and we'll send you a message when you're halfway through.
Okay, thank you, everyone. I think we are all back. I said this just a moment ago, and I'm going to say it again in case you weren't here, but if you were in a breakout room, you'll need to reselect your audio channel. So you'll need to click on the globe icon or the 3 dots on your phone to select English or Spanish, and I will put the instructions for that in the chat again. So we'll give everyone just a moment. All right, thank you, Liana, and I'll pass it over to Lydia to lead us in debriefing our breakout room conversations.
Thanks, Jenny and Liana, for getting us back into interpretation. And welcome back, everyone. Hopefully, we know it was a short time. It's a very short time to plan out a whole campaign, but we hope you kind of came up with some general ideas or had a chance to talk to each other and talk about what you might need to build out your campaign or your collective effort to get something done. So the first question, after we've gone over our, we know kind of who we might want in our base, who's going to be guiding this, and also that the issue that we're dealing with is the 20-day notice. What did people come up with as your specific goal, or what did people understand to be the specific goal of this campaign? We're going to do it popcorn style, so feel free to unmute yourself or put it in the chat, and we will either read it out or type it out on the screen.
Should we call out groups? Group numbers?
But if you were in group 2, do people know what group they were in? That's what I thought. That's okay. Yeah, mostly can folks put in the chat? I understand speaking in a larger group is stressful sometimes. So any ideas? Oh, keep a place to live in. That's a great one.
I put down, I mean, having either more time to move out, prevent like unjust evictions, or just like actually organizing some kind of collective bargaining unit to get a new lease.
Cool, yeah. These are all great specific solutions that you would be bringing to the table. Any others that aren't listed here already?
Yeah, so we talked about extending it potentially from the 20-day notice to the 90-day notice, and likely needing to do that through legal action. In terms of persuading a landlord to do it, if they're not legally obliged to, they probably won't unless we either organize the community and pick it, or if we take legal action and try to get the 90 days, basically enough time that anyone who needs to arrange where they're going to move to has a home before that short notice. I don't know that there would be enough time to do legal action or like a big political movement, simply because there's 20 days. So either the community and the tenants could sit in the building and refuse to leave and protest the forced eviction. And then what I would envision as the ideal solution is some sort of legal framework where tenants are given the option to buy a building. For example, if it's being sold, that the tenants would have the option to buy the building before they sell it. And there are examples of this in other countries where governments will assist people in buying a company as a worker co-op if it's being sold and the employees are there. So I think a similar framework for a building that there are renters, it's being sold, should also exist.
Yeah. Those are all great points. That first option to purchase is something that we know a lot of tenants some have done and a lot have fought for. So that's a good one to point out as a specific goal. Awesome. Cool. These are all great specific goals. So based on your goals, who might your targets be? Did you come up with specific decision makers or make up any fun names for who those decision makers are? I say fun facetiously.
I didn't really. I just came up with roles. So
Yeah.
I was thinking about people that are you know, okay at talking, or you know, comfortable talking with people, going and talking with neighbors, organizing people, doing some little antagonism about, you know, what's wrong, what your concerns about, you know, this property. People that are good at passing out, or that want to pass out pamphlets or flyers, or maybe even create them. Obviously getting involved with protesting, and maybe if someone knows, like a friendly journalist writing to them and being like, this is the situation. Da, 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 da.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like some of those things might even fall in like the base building piece, right? So like, that's how you're going to build your base, is like talking to your neighbors, getting some tenant leaders or some community leaders, as you said, to talk to each other, because that's where it starts, right?
Totally.
Oftentimes people call it agitate. I think you even said that maybe.
Yeah, I said antagonism, but agitating.
To get people invested in, and also show them that they're not alone. That's really good base building. I was gonna say partners and allies, maybe a friendly journalist. I heard someone who, or a publication that is friendly to tenant issues. Those are great tools and great allies and people to call on. So that's great. Anyone have any other target ideas? Like like a decision maker who can make some of your specific goals happen? Anyone who's like came up with who might be able to make it happen? Targets.
We had a situation similar in Spokane where the landlord doubled the rent and the tenants went to the city council, and a city council member intervened on their action, met with the landlord and brought in the landlord association and got the landlord to withdraw the notices, and then offer $2,000 to every tenant for moving expenses if they wanted to move.
Nice. That's a great one, Terry. Yeah, city council members are a great target. Specific people who can make something happen. Sweet. Yeah, those are all great targets. I'm also seeing the chat is very active, which is fabulous. Yeah, city council members in Seattle and Spokane could be. Sometimes they're friendly, sometimes they're not. You'd be surprised. Sometimes you have to make them friendly. Speaking of making people friendly or finding who's unfriendly, who did people name as their potential opposition for getting their goals met?
I mean, obvious landlords. Yeah, landlords and property management. I also just put down like any other reactionary forces that might, react to some kind of organizing effort.
Did I hear homeowners association? No. Landlords, I'm seeing landlords consistent, even certain state officials. Oh, can help. Yeah. Greedy landlords.
Huge corporate car washes that are trying to move into your neighborhood and kick you out by tearing down your housing.
Wow.
Yeah. Specific and helpful example.
Mega wash. We dislike you.
Yeah, I was about to say, I was like, I hope there's an at Mega Wash. If anyone sees a Mega Wash in Spokane, just know they're not, they're your opposition.
Boone and Ash.
Ooh.
Oh yeah, okay. I know where that is.
Yep. Yeah, businesses are a good, can be in opposition to keeping tenants in their homes. Let's see. I'm gonna scoot us along to, I believe, we've already mentioned, and I'm not trying to move through it too fast. Are there any partners or allies that are not mentioned here? So far, we have a friendly journalist or a publication sympathetic to tenant issues, people comfortable talking with their neighbors, so tenant leaders and stuff like that. Daycares, nice.
Community centers,
love it.
Yeah, I put down local institutions just in general, like community institutions. Yeah, daycare centers and schools and churches are great.
Nice. Anything missing? I mean, there's a lot missing. Oh, I'm seeing a lot in the chat. Sarah has shared churches, local organizations, and schools. All really, really good community spaces.
I saw Justice, had SCAR behind on their background. That's in Spokane. That's like a mutual aid, anti-racist organization. Something like that would be great.
Thanks for showing us your background briefly. To give context.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you, Justice.
Mutual aid organizations. Great, amazing.
Latinos in Spokane, APIC,
Nice.
NAACP.
I'm seeing in the chat Spectrum. I'm seeing the Tenants Union. The AG, is that the Attorney General?
Yeah, with Northwest Justice Project.
And Northwest Justice Project. Cool. I was making sure I was like AG. I assumed it was Attorney General, but could have been something else. Amazing. Look at this list of allies. So much bigger than the list of opposition. Just want to point that out. Just saying. People over profit every day, all day. All right. I'm going to move us along just so we have a little bit more time. I know we're running low on time, but this debrief is awesome. I think our last question to go over is, what are some of the tactics? We've heard some of them, we've reviewed some of them. What are some other tactics you might use to get your demands met or get your target or decision maker to listen?
Organizing for power.
I heard sit in. I also heard direct action planning. So like really having strategic direct action because it's a short amount of time. Northwest mediation. Yes. Seeking out mediation support. Legal action, getting a lawyer involved on as early as possible. See if they can help or how they will help. I'm just on, if I saw the news, you mentioned a friendly news or a friendly reporter. Would maybe something along those lines be a tactic you would want to use, like getting an op-ed out there or
Yeah,
something along?
I would say so.
The inlander, jeers and cheers.
Nice.
No,
I know there are so many more tactics that you all probably came up with in your groups. And I'm only moving us along because we are very low on time because we had some tech issues in the beginning.
Campaign.
Postcard campaign. There's an endless amount of ways you can build out an incredible campaign. And as I think, Amber, one of the things you put on here as a tactic, but also as the overarching goal is being organized to build power. That's the point of campaign building. It's so that you are working together and working with your base and your allies to really build that power that makes it hard for somebody in a decision-making position to say no to your demands and your goals. You all have done an amazing job building out a sample campaign, and these are just examples. I'm sure if given the opportunity, we could dig so much deeper into all of this, and we hope to do that at a future date. But for now, I'm going to pass it to Julissa, who's going to take it away and tell us about an amazing campaign of not only of her own, but that she was key to making happen. Thanks everyone for doing that whole debrief and going to your breakout rooms and then talking to each other. Big props to everyone who helped build out those awesome campaigns. Can't wait to see where it goes.
Yeah, seriously, I'm so inspired. We have a whole lot of tenant leaders and organizers in the room. That's what's up. Well, I did want to talk about the Just Cause campaign in the city of Burien. So if you read along with me, October of 2018, an entire building in the city of Burien received an eviction notice, terminating their lease with a no-cost 20-day notice. After I was tagged on a post one of the tenants shared on Facebook pleading for help, I quickly met with the tenants to clearly assess the situation and put together a plan. Over 20 families were on the verge of becoming displaced, some even homeless. Even though what was happening was clearly immoral, I knew that there was nothing illegal about what the landlord was doing because Burien didn't have any laws that made it unlawful. The only option we had was to organize. We had to plan something big, right? But thankfully, educators in the Highline School District, teachers of the children's being displaced, The church community and community organizations came together in Tenants' Rights Coalition. We met every Thursday in a church in Burien, and all of us brought our expertise and our passion and our anger together. So first, because of all of the push that we had on city council, we were there every city council that there was. We flooded that city council. That first we were able to get relocation assistance from human services orgs and some from the government for the tenants that were being displaced. Because the notices went out in October, and by the time that they had to that we strategized and prolonged it, it was already during the holidays, and it was winter, and it was just terrible. So when these meetings were going on, I did critique the city of Burien because it has a large Spanish speaking population. So that was the first time that they actually implemented interpretation services in the city of or translation services in the city council meetings. And the strategies that the community used were getting the media involved, journalists and news channels, they came to interview tenants in the community and community organizations such as myself and others involved. We did door knocking, telling tenants of the city of Burien about Just Cause, what it was, inviting them to organize and come to city council meetings to pressure the city council to vote in favor of Just Cause. We, flooded the city council meetings and testified the affected tenants. We centered the tenants that were actually being displaced. But the community members also testified, organizations testified, allies testified, landlords testified, the homeowner association testified, and it was intense. It was pretty intense. And one of the times that I testified, I said I was staring at the person, the representative of the homeowners association, and I said, if you're against tenants' rights, you have no business being in the business of housing folks. That person never came back. I was pretty proud of that. And we did a building community through community gathering strategies. We threw carne asadas, potlucks. We invited city council members to gatherings and had conversations with them. And very important, we studied city council members. We studied who was supporting us, who wouldn't support us, and we researched each council member and how we can individually convince them. A lot of them mostly care about their reputation, so we really targeted that. The day that city council was voting for Just Cause, or on the matter of Just Cause, I even brought the mayor's mom because I knew the mayor's mom and just to pressure the mayor. And it worked. It worked. Burien City Council unanimously passed Just Cause that day. And let me tell you, it was, if we can't go to the next picture or slide, please. This is a picture from the very back of the city council in Burien that is full. Even the hallway in the back was overflowed with people. We had tamales and chapurrado. We had food. We celebrated. We went to eat afterwards. It was a huge celebration because it took a whole year. It took a whole year and then some to organize. All this organizing took a year. And many other cities like Spokane and other cities in the state of Washington had been advocating for Just Cause for years. For years it had been advocating for it. So it was huge. It was like the first time since Seattle passed it in this in the, correct me, Violet, but since Seattle passed it in the 70s, right?
It was in the 80s.
It was
Yeah,
in
in
the
the 80s.
Thank you. In the 80s, that it hadn't been passed in anywhere else in the state of Washington. There we go. In over 41 years. It was the first time. So that was huge. And see, this is what I'm saying. Like when you guys were talking about your campaigns that you guys came up with, I was like, oh my gosh, these guys are gonna make it happen. I was like, these guys are ready. Like they are real tenant leaders, and they already come with a lot of the tools. We're just helping sharpening them. Wow. Well, just to show how powerful, you know, this organizing was, is that after the unanimous passing of just cause in the city of Burien, that inspired cities in South King County, with the support of other housing justice orgs, to organize to pass just cause in other cities in South King County, such as Federal Way, which organized for a ballot initiative. Definitely, it was like a domino effect that fed the fire that motivated the fight for justice and housing rights. Meanwhile, tenants throughout the state were meeting with state legislatures to urge for just cause. BIPOC tenants participated in the statewide POC caucus, legislative conference, and tenants' rights in Spokane met with elected city leaders to urge local state legislators, which included the state Senate Majority Leader, to support a state just cause law. So we were hitting it from everywhere, like Spokane and the east side and the south side of the state and the north side of the state, because of the success of just cause in Burien and other South King County cities, due to tenant organizing. And also, you know, as the city of Auburn enacted just cause, tenants and advocates met with legislative housing champions like Representative Nicole Macquarie, who sponsored the just cause bill and was signed into law by Governor Jay Inslee in 2020. So now landlords must have a just cause as to why they're terminating a month-to-month lease. And I'm going to be passing the mic over to our amazing Amber and Terry. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Before Amber and Terry speak, we're a little bit over time. So go ahead, Terry.
I'm sorry. I was just going to be really quick.
Okay.
I think you will all get a handout with the policies that tenants have been proposing for the city of Spokane for probably getting close to 6 years now. Like I said earlier, there was going to be a vote in March of 2020, but it was the day that the state shut down. So we've been in a holding pattern with only the state moratorium to protect us. So I have a list of the policies. They're numerous. One of them is to close that loophole for just cause, which currently only protects month-to-month tenants. We want the city to extend that so tenants on fixed-term leases will also have just cause protection. Seattle has already done that. And so any of you out there who are organizing in your towns and cities, please keep that one in mind, because just like what Julissa told you about Burien passing just cause, once that created that more cities getting into the action and doing the same thing, that's what prompted the state to make that change. If we can get enough cities to close that loophole, it is an amendment that was never intended to be there. And it's, I think, harmful for fixed term tenants. So anybody here that is from Spokane, or actually we will be doing action alerts throughout the state. The city of Spokane, I just was notified this morning, are going to be reconvening the landlord tenant work group. We will be recruiting tenants to help serve on that work group. There will also be a public forum, and the ordinances that the city council are looking at will be going through the city council has a housing action subcommittee, and the housing action subcommittee will also be weighing in, and so tenants that will be a target. So look for action alerts, contact our office, email me or Amber if you want to join in that campaign, and look for our Facebook posts, because we will be holding a tenant meeting soon. And if we have FutureWise and RAP on the, any of the FutureWise or RAP members are on this call, we would like to invite your organizations and your tenants to join us in urging City Council to make these very important. And the most important one is that we are asking our City Council to extend the notice period for rent increases to 6 months, the way Seattle has done, because 60 days is not enough time for 110% rent increase. Thank you. Amber, do you want anything to add? Okay, I guess that's it from Spokane. Thank you all.
All right, thanks, Terry. And so thank you, everyone. We know we're over time, and we're just like really glad that we connected with you all. I think one of the things that we're getting out of this is leaders emerging from advocating, doing this work. How you can connect to the TU is we have posted everything on our website, Facebook. Get involved. We know we're over time, and we're just happy that you have joined us. Look out for future workshops that we have going. We would like to invite all of you to either volunteer with the tenant union or get involved. You know, once again, I want to say gracias for being here and bringing your power. It's a collective power that fuels the revolution. Our hope is that you can take this knowledge to your community, start organizing your buildings to grow statewide tenant power. If you need our support, call us. This means talking to your neighbors, thinking of what impacts you, envisioning solutions. Legislators have never given up, given us our rights. We have to fight for our rights. Creating tenant power and solidarity is how we're going to create policies to protect and enforce your rights as tenants. And I'm going to pass it to Jalissa because we're ending the meeting. Jalissa?
Wow, that was so beautiful. Lastly, the invitation to register to our 45th anniversary celebration is taking place in Burien on August 2nd and in Tacoma and Spokane on September 15th. It's going to be a big fiesta. I would know because I'm co-organizing it. So please join us to celebrate housing justice and tenant power. Please.
Thank you all, and have a great night. Thank you from the tenant union staff, our organization, and our board. We just say gracias.
Sí, gracias.
Mahalo. Gracias.
Mahalo.
Yes.
Yeah, and if
all.
you are interested in becoming a member, a tenant leader, please reach out to us.
Yes.
You all have it on lock. So if you want to pass anything for rent control, please talk to us. We need your help. We need to gear up for when legislative season comes up.
Yes.
Let's get that loophole and just cause protection.
Yeah.
Yeah, that too. So many things.
All right, everyone. Have a great night. It was great seeing all of you. And adios.
Adios.
Thanks, everybody.
Adios.
Thanks, everyone.
Adios.
Good night.
My earrings fell off.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
When we fight, we win.
Yes.
I know, I was about to say, we're missing the chant.
Mm.
We ran through our chant time.
Okay. All right. Great job, everyone.
I think we'll stop interpretation.